Okay, we're gonna start here. You please rise for the pledge. Where's our flag? All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pretty sharp. It's pretty smart. Okay. Okay. Ms. Hanser, can you please take attendance?
I shall. President D'Alessandro,
Here.
Vice President Griffith,
Here.
Secretary Hanser, President, Treasurer Schaefer,
Here.
Trustee Foster,
Here.
Trustee Schultz,
Here.
Trustee Reese,
Here.
Thank you. Are there any, there's no changes to the board agenda. Would be item number 2. Item 3 is the consent agenda. That would consist of the November 10th meeting minutes, our special meeting, the November 10th closed session meeting, and the bills payable for October of 2022. And then there's some hiring recommendations. There's a motion. Mr. Griffith,
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
is there support? Support, Mr. Foster. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item number 4, Board of Education matters. Item A, the memorial discussion, and that would be Todd Barlis. There you are.
So in regards to the memorial discussion that was brought up at our last board meeting, we are looking at, as a district, I've been asked to be the point person to coordinate with our community and our school stakeholders to form a committee to move this work forward. And we will be providing quarterly reports back to the board in regards to our progress with regards to establishing the direction we're going with Memorial.
Okay. I just want to make it real clear because I think there's some questions, cause for concerns. One of the reasons that I want people to know that the district is not going to be the one that is dictating what happens or how it happens. The reason that we want to have an appointed person to handle anybody that wants to be involved, wants to get some thoughts and ideas into the discussion of what the memorial looks like or how they can help. It's real simple. These board positions change. You can see that 2 of the 3 board members that were appointed, Mr. Griffith, Ms. Hanser, and Mr. Bailey. Mr. Bailey's no longer on the board. Mr. Griffith won't be on the board for more than a month. And that's just the cyclical nature of school boards and boards in general. There's comings and goings. It would not be in the best interest of this memorial to do it the right way, to have 4 or 5 new people come in when this really starts to take off. There could be completely different ideas, and then all that work that has been done goes by the wayside. It's just, this is not the setup to have that type of conversation. So I just want you to know that you are the point person. You will have another person hopefully helping you, but we're always going to be here to help in any way that we can. But we don't want to be the owners of this project, just for that simple fact.
Certainly. So I appreciate the work that Chad and his group had done up until this point with regards to research around how other communities have moved this work forward. I will rely on our recovery coordinator, Ms. Laura Zoni. Her purpose is to assist the community and our school in our recovery as we go forward. And so my intent would be to put out, similar to what we've done for our 3-year recovery plan with our committee work, an application out to the community where they can apply to be part of that committee so we could get a nice representation of stakeholders, and then we would move forward with that work together as a committee. So,
Are there any questions, Heather?
Well, I just want to be clear too that Laura's going to be including the families to see what their level of interest is as far as what opinions that they might have, or if they want to designate somebody else maybe in their family or a friend of their families to speak on their behalf. This will be inclusive with them, correct?
certainly, yeah. Laura really is
That's
a
kind of
wonderful
her role.
liaison with our families, both of our victims and our families who have injured. And so Laura will just play an important role with engaging those families and their input with regards to going forward and how we do that.
Okay.
Anybody else? I also think that we need to look at the possibility of a national organization that maybe has done this in the past. There may be somebody local, there may be some local, I don't know, I don't even know, national organizations or local organizations that are familiar with how to do this, because if this needs to be done, but it needs to be done the right way. And I can't emphasize that enough. So, thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Yes.
I just have one comment or question. Todd, Jamie's back there from the Resiliency Center. I don't know if, they seem to be very tied in nationally to all sorts of assistance and organizations. So I know that you guys have probably chatted a lot, so
thank you.
they may be of some assistance.
Yeah, Jamie's visited many of the communities that we would reference as a committee and draw from. Oxford has its own set of circumstances, and we are our own community, but definitely, Jamie will be a great resource as far as some of those connections and contacts for us to move forward.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I think we'll be seeing you again a little later. Okay, item B, we want to get an update from Guidepost. If they, there we go. I saw some unfamiliar faces and I really wasn't sure who was from Guidepost.
It is me. Just give me a moment.
Okay.
Good evening, trustees, superintendent. Is Superintendent Weaver here this evening?
Mr. Weaver is not here this
He
evening.
is not, all right. Oxford community, both here and home tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We appreciate this opportunity to update the board and the community on the progress of our independent investigation. My name is Bradley Disick. I am an executive vice president with Guidepost Solutions, the firm engaged to conduct the independent investigation of the events leading up to, on, and after November 30th, 2021. I am here this evening to provide notice that Guidepost will be producing 2 reports. We believe this will be the most effective way to communicate our findings to the Oxford community. The first report will be a review of the district's current security and threat assessment practices. We will map out with detailed analysis for the Oxford community what the district is currently doing today. This report will conclude with recommendations to assist Oxford Community Schools with making its security and threat assessment programs effective, sustainable, and in line with national best practices. We still have a handful of meetings to complete regarding what is currently in place, but I anticipate that this report will be released in January 2023. Over the past few weeks, Superintendent Weaver, Principal Beasley, and Oxford Education Association President Jim Givens have been helpful setting up the remaining meetings. We are hopeful they will be completed over the next few weeks before the holidays begin. Our second report will provide a full accounting of the events leading up to, on, and after November 30th, 2021. This report will focus on the answers that the victims' families and the Oxford community has been demanding. Our investigation is being conducted objectively. It is not a gotcha, but our report will not pull any punches. Our mandate is to provide the Oxford community and the victim's family with transparency. That is what we will do. This second report will also provide an assessment of whether the security and threat assessment practices currently in place today that will be discussed in our first report would better mitigate the risk of the events of November 30th happening again. We expect the learnings of this second report to cover 4 primary things: governance, systems, procedures, and judgment. Our second report will conclude with recommendations. We already have a comprehensive and intimate understanding of the facts. From our review of documents, confidential interviews, and meetings with witnesses, we will be able to effectively report on the events that happened prior to, on, and after November 30th, 2021. What remains for us to do is meet with critical witnesses. The Gianmarco, Mullins, and Horton attorney hired by the district's insurance carrier, SETSEG, and currently representing the board and a number of individuals, Tim Mullins, represented to us that he will make the individuals he represents available to us for interviews after their depositions. We are going to hold him to that. This board made a policy decision to conduct an independent investigation. Consistent with that, we anticipate that the district's council will make individual witnesses available to meet with us and facilitate their interviews in the near future. We have not been made aware by the district's council that any of the individual witnesses are conflicted from having the same representation as the district, consistent with the district's, we have not been made aware by the district's council that any of the individual witnesses are conflicted from having the same representation as the district. So consistent with the district's direction to cooperate with the investigation, we anticipate Gianmarco making their individual clients available to us for interviews. Additionally, other individuals through their counsel have indicated to us an intent to cooperate with the district and sit down for an interview with us. One individual is waiting on confirmation from Gianmarco that the district's insurance carrier, SETSEG, will continue to pay for the representation if they do cooperate with our investigation. We are grateful to the many people, staff, community members, family members, and victims who have engaged with us through our confidential and anonymous process. These interviews have been invaluable. As is publicly known, voluntary participation has been difficult. Many Oxford families, community members, administrators, and staff are themselves dealing with trauma. Many are scared about the uncertainties of the investigative process. What I am here to say tonight is if you wish to speak, if you want to tell your story, we are here to listen. As Oxford Education Association President Jim Gibbons stated in an MEA letter on December 10th, 2021, a little over a week after the tragic events of November 30th, the pain is immense. We hear you, but we also understand that there are stories to be told, as Gibbons suggested, to save lives. We want to listen to those stories as well and include them in our report. If you so choose to meet with us, your interview will be confidential and your involvement anonymous. Our trauma-informed professionals will listen to you with intention to learn. And many times, what intuitively seems to be the most innocuous perception of, for example, an alarm, has material meaning to our ability to best advise on how Oxford Community Schools can best provide for this community's safety and security going forward. What we want to better understand from you, particularly teachers and staff, is the effectiveness of what was and is now in place. If something did not work then, it probably will not work now. Your participation is essential to our ability to best learn from November 30th and inform on what measures are necessary to prevent it from ever happening again, here or anywhere else in Michigan and across the nation. Since the beginning of October, with the support of this board, Superintendent Weaver, Principal Beasley, and Oxford Education Association President Jim Gibbons, we have seen momentum and an uptick in voluntary participation. Thanks to each of you for your help facilitating these meetings. There are 108 witnesses that we have requested to interview. To date, we have approximately 50% voluntary participation rates. A handful have indicated a desire to not relive the trauma of November 30th. We have respected those requests where appropriate. Others have indicated to us fear of the uncertainty of this investigation itself. That I emphasize with. We can do a better job communicating about this process. In the coming days, I plan to reach out to the board, Superintendent Weaver, Principal Beasley, Oxford Education Association President Jim Gibbons, and the Michigan Education Association, with a request to set up a teacher and staff town hall to introduce the investigative team, talk about our process, and make ourselves available to answer their questions about the investigation and its current status. To conclude, our efforts have been fruitful. We will be able to effectively communicate to the Oxford community our findings about the events prior to, on, and after November 30th, 2021 in detail. Our preference is to provide critical witnesses and others, such as administrators, teachers, staff, students, victims' families, and board members, an opportunity to tell their stories. To heal. Many have come forward to voluntarily participate. For those who have not yet but want to do so, our door is open. Please reach out. And if you do want to reach out, you can contact us directly at oxford@guidepostsolutions.com, me directly at bdizik, that's D-I-Z-I-K, at guidepostsolutions.com, or any of my other colleagues who you may have already interacted with. I thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, thoughts from any of the board members? I will say, is this working? I can't tell. All right. I will say that we need to be, as a board, if we want to speak with Guidepost, we shouldn't be asking any questions on what their process is or anything like that, because this is their process, not ours. We have to be hands-off and let them do it. That's why you have an independent review. It's independent of us. But that does not suggest that we can't give them an understanding of our viewpoints that happened from the 30s. Is that what you're suggesting?
Absolutely. Many of you were on this board prior to and on November 30th. Some of you have come onto this board since that point in time. We would like to hear your experiences, your perceptions, and your thoughts and your ideas, right? The whole concept of this independent investigation is really twofold: to find out the truth of what happened, bring light to that, and to inform not just the community and the school board, but the state of Michigan, us nationally, so that we can do better to prevent similar events from happening. So we want to hear from you, what you are thinking, what you may want to share, what your perception is of not only those events, but how the aftermath has been handled. So our door is open. We look forward to meeting with each one of you. Look forward to hearing your stories, hearing your ideas, and your thoughts. So, thank you.
Very good. Okay. I do appreciate you coming.
Absolutely.
Taking the time to update ourselves and the community. We'll build that back to you.
Thanks, Brad. Thank you.
Okay. Curriculum and instruction. Ms. Conja Collins and Mr. Wolf. We have nothing on the agenda. Just want to make sure nothing's changed. Okay. Business and maintenance, Mr. Barna. I know Mr. Barna is not here this evening. His sister passed away, and he's going to be with his family for Thanksgiving and to memorialize her. So that's why Mr. Barna is not here today. Human Resources, item number 7, Lori. I don't see Lori here. We didn't have anything on the agenda, but we will have some future announcements in regards to our Human Resources Department. Safety and School Operations, again, Mr. Barlis. This will be a threat and suicide assessment prevention.
I'm going to walk up here so I can advance my slides. So I apologize for staying behind some of you.
anybody wants, the board member wants to move around so you can see it a little bit better, I also, or I shouldn't say I, Angela also made us copies, so you can see it while he's speaking. Pardon?
So thanks for having me this evening, and I am happy to present an update on Oxford Community Schools Threat and Suicide Assessment Overview. The policies and guidelines and forms that I plan to share with all of you tonight have been presented in different forms over the past several months via safety updates to the board, informational meetings to the community, parent forums, and various other communications. The intent tonight is to share the district's ongoing training and updated resources intended to support the threat and suicide assessment processes that are aligned across the district, across Oakland County, and across the state of Michigan. So threat assessment in Oxford Community Schools includes policies, administrative guidelines, and assessment forms. However, assessing threats and interventions to support our students represent a diverse set of systems. This visual was actually created by one of my colleagues in Colorado, but adapted well to our school district systems. So as we look at it, we utilize digital monitoring through Gaggle and GoGuardian. We also share information between agencies with our local law enforcement, be it the village or the county or whatnot. We utilize anonymous reporting through OK to Say. Our community members provide insight regarding concerns noted with friends, family, acquaintances, and we have security measures in place with Zero Eyes and Evolve as examples of that. And we also utilize surveys and forums for our stakeholders. So some of our parent forums that we've conducted, our listening circles, things of that nature. The intervention protocols listed here are an important part of supporting this threat process. For some reason, my slides are not advancing. I do have a hard copy.
I'm going to talk really loud, okay? Because I think that tumble off the podium might have done something to our microphone. So, this is our threat assessment protocols. And threat assessment teams actually have conducted this year from August to November. At the elementary level, we provided 13 different complete threat assessments. At the secondary level, our assessment teams have actually completed 36 assessments. Threat assessment teams spend anywhere from 2 to 3 hours completing a comprehensive threat assessment, and that's the entire team engaged in that process. As a reminder, the district is casting a wider net to identify specific needs for these assessments. This is a list of imminent warning signs. They'll be discussed further with regards to Administrative Guideline 8410B. But these are some of the imminent warning signs that are referenced in that particular guideline. So our threat assessments are performed by trained multidisciplinary teams of professionals with varying backgrounds and lenses through which to analyze the concerning content or activity. We've used, some of our teams are trained in youth mental health first aid. We've had specific training through Secure Education Consultants, Prepare, which is a crisis response model, and also Behavior Threat and Management, which is considered BTAM. So this is a school safety policy. policy 8400. It's school safety information. It is an overall school safety policy, not just specific to threat assessment, but it does include threat assessment and suicide assessment in this policy. This guides the school safety committee for school safety issues across the district and goes well beyond just threat assessments. Administrative Guideline 8400A is actually the Threat Assessment and Intervention Guideline. And it outlines who comprises a threat assessment team and the steps our teams take when completing an assessment. It's important to note that part of that team, the building level threat assessment teams are headed by a principal and include a school counselor, school psychologist, second mental health professional, instructional personnel, and where appropriate, the school resource officer. When logistics and staff assignments make it feasible, a team may serve more than one school at a time, and team members shall receive training. Some of the training referenced in the previous slide would meet this guideline. This particular administrative guideline was adopted by Cabinet September 13th of 2022, and that's listed on the administrative guideline. So this is our threat assessment, 8400 Form 1. It's the documentation pertaining to threat assessment and intervention. It really walks our team through the process. So this form, it just checks the boxes. Who's involved? How are they moving through the process? And this is the first page of that particular form. There are actually 6 pages total. Administrative Guideline 8410A references those early warning signs that I referenced previously. So the purpose of 8410A is to avoid over-identifying student behavior. It really lists the following principles are included to avoid misinterpretation and better understand the early warning signs. So the intent is to do no harm, understand violence and aggression within context, avoid stereotypes, view warning signs within a developmental context, perhaps based on age of the student, and also understand that children typically exhibit multiple warning signs, not just one. Administrative Guideline 8410B is identifying and responding to imminent warning signs. And again, these imminent warning signs may include serious physical fighting with peers, family members, severe destruction of property, perhaps threats of lethal violence, severe rage for seemingly minor reasons, possession or use of firearms or weapons, or other self-injurious behaviors or threats of suicide. So these are the warning signs that were referenced previously. Administrative Guideline 8410C are the principles underlining our interventions. So I referenced our interventions in that first slide. Several of our principles include shared responsibility by establishing a partnership with a child, maintaining confidentiality and parents' rights to privacy, using sustained multiple coordinated interventions, which we document through our multi-tiered systems of support that was referenced in that first slide, and building upon and coordinating internal school resources. The district SRO assists, school resource officer assists with development of violence prevention and response plans that are referenced in Administrative Guideline 8410C. So our SRO is involved in creating those response plans. So threat assessment training, this is training that we've engaged in over the last several months. So the behavior threat and assessment and management, which is referenced as BTAM, the Michigan State Police have established funding to provide this training statewide, and they encourage all school districts to register their entire threat assessment teams. So as we move forward, the BTAM platform is modeled after the U.S. Secret Service National Threat Assessment Center, which is NTAC, and their guidance. The district threat assessment teams, we've got approximately 62 members of our threat assessment team that have actually been trained in our basic BTAM model. So that is actually all but 3 of our threat assessment team members. and those 3 are actually going to be getting training through Michigan State Police in the future. The basic threat assessment and management training is being provided through the state of Michigan in I believe January and May for those 3 participants to register and go. I think we have 2 of them registered. The 3rd one will be registering soon. Advanced BTAM training will be provided to district teams on January 13th and February 14th. We're actually bringing them in order to provide that training. There will also be additional advanced trainings offered through the state of Michigan in January and May of 2023. The one thing that I'd like to stress, and I think I get to it in the next slide, is that the basic training is really an overview of the BTAM process. And then the advanced training, which we are trying to get the rest of our threat assessment teams through, focuses on scenarios and how to use those tools that they gathered in that basic training, in their initial training. So it helps to keep them sharp, utilize the resources that they learned about and established. Secondary staff not regularly participating in threat assessment teams have received training opportunities through Secured Education Consultants by Mr. Jason Russell. This training was specific for staff to build skills regarding look-fors when a student is struggling with early warning signs. These trainings have been provided in person and via Zoom. So those staff members who aren't actually involved in the threat assessments on a regular basis actually receive those trainings through SEC to know what to look for in students or children that they engage with in the school setting. Some of our objectives of behavior threat and management training include the basic behavior threat assessment and management training provides an overview, like I referenced, the resources to support threat assessment. The advanced training is the scenario-based training that utilizes and maintains the BTAM process. These are some of the outcomes of our staff who have participated in that basic BTAM course. So, understanding major facts about school violence, being familiar with the principles of behavioral threat assessments, knowing how to facilitate a threat assessment program using 8 steps, gaining practice using threat assessment procedures. Understanding how to work a threat assessment case includes those bullet points there: screening cases, gathering information from multiple sources, analyzing the information, and how to make a determination. If needed, how to develop a case management plan to reduce the risk. And that's definitely, we have our SROs involved in that process. That's what I referenced previously. This is an example of a current guiding document provided through the basic BTAM training to assess, to follow that assessment process with the basic BTAM model. Guides teams through the behavioral threat assessment process. So as referenced previously, the district has approximately 62 threat assessment team members trained. Examples of trained staff include lead teachers, administrators, social workers, psychologists, counselors, and family school liaisons. Our specific presenter is Dr. Melissa Reeves, who came and did our actual training. She is a co-author of the NASS Prepare School Crisis Prevention and Intervention Curriculum and has extensive experience in statewide implementation of threat assessment protocols. She was very good with our staff. So the district is working to expand Navigate 360. Navigate 360 actually syncs with our Power School system, which is our student information system, and it will store our threat assessments, be it behavioral threats or suicidal assessments. And so that is a nice platform to capture that information and make sure that we have it all in one location. So speaking directly to suicide assessment, the one thing I want to note is school resource officers are made aware when suicide assessments are initiated. Administrative Guideline 5350 is our suicide intervention process, and we've got 5 steps. Step 1 is stabilize the situation. Assess the risk is step 2. Then we move to take appropriate action. Step 4 is actually communicate, inform inform the appropriate members of the district staff regarding the facts and the actions being taken. Step 5 is follow-up, so maintaining that continuing contact with the student, remain alert to possible copycat suicide attempts, things of that nature. So it's really being on high alert. So those are our 5 primary steps when it comes to suicide intervention process, and Administrative Guideline 5350 kind of walks us through those steps. Uh, 5350 forms 1 and 2. These are Neola forms. 5351, Form 1 documents specifics of who is involved in the suicide assessment process, and Form 5352 guides the suicide assessment team to determine a student's level of risk. Is that level of risk low, medium, or high? These are the forms that actually have been in place across the district, and currently what's aligned with our administrative guidelines as well as our board policies. We do have suicide assessment training. Currently, we've got the Psych series through Oakland Schools, which is Understanding and Managing Suicide in Schools. It's December 16th. We have several of our mental health staff that are going to be participating in that training. And then we've also have our Safe Talk Suicide Alertness for Everyone. So we've secured training for 60 staff members on December 16th. I want to give credit to some of our OVA administrators for actually locking that in and working out some of those details. We're requesting a second date in January or February for additional school staff and volunteers, parents, to participate in the Safe Talk training. The purpose of this training is not for mental health professionals, but adults who interact with our students at school or in the community. It's really to know the signs and how to respond to those signs, questions to ask. It really gives just you and me how to move forward when we have concerns about someone and what to look for. The District Mental Health Committee, which has been developed as part of the District 3-year recovery plan, will continue to discuss how we want to further roll out Safe Talk training within our school community and beyond. So the Columbia Protocol is actually, it's a screening tool that we can use as our staff are trained in order to assess risk. So it is a resource, it's a tool that we can use, it's evidence-based and research informed, and it's specifically highly utilized within the school setting. So it assists us with suicide prevention strategies, identifies level of risk, again, high, medium, and low, and it is just a widely used tool that we are looking at to bring on. It is part of the trainings in Safe Talk, and it will be referenced in our school psych series at Oakland Schools when our mental health staff participate in that also. Finally, as I referenced on our first slide tonight, threat assessment in Oxford Community Schools includes not only policies, administrative guidelines, and assessment forms, but as we go forward with guidance from Oakland Schools, the state of Michigan, and national leaders in this field, the district will continue to train staff and develop our practices using the evidence-based and research-informed information provided tonight. Thank you for supporting this important work and supporting the many, as you can see, the many staff required to manage these interventions represented this evening in this presentation. So, questions?
Questions, Aaron, do you have?
Yeah, thank you. So Todd, I just wanted to ask, so the BTAM training is through the Michigan State Police, so is all of Oakland schools getting some of this? And I ask because there's transition of staff between districts, students between districts. Are we leading the efforts in this, or is it something that we're working within our greater school communities to accomplish?
Oakland Schools actually, some of their staff participated in our training. So yeah, Oakland Schools will be participating with the BTAM training countywide. So, but we are actually, fortunately, Ms. Pam Veal was able to bring them in to actually train our staff on site, which was really nice to be able to train 2 different cohorts of staff right on site with actually one of the co-founders of the program.
Chad?
Yeah, Chad.
Todd, thanks for talking us through this. There's a lot of information. But it's obviously critical. I've got two questions though that came up, and going back, you were talking about the staff that's not part of a threat assessment, right? They're going through training of their own to identify signals, right? I would assume that in that training, those people, once they identify those signals, that they're directed to take those concerns to a threat assessment team member. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that is really the purpose, is to identify the process to access help, or to make a referral for support services.
Okay.
The one thing that came out was last fall, or actually the end of last school year, Oakland Schools created this card as a lifeline, which is, it kind of goes along with that. It's a support. And it was really just identified as a necessary tool. And the students were given these, and if they felt like they were anxious or depressed or struggling in some way, they could simply hand this card to an adult, and the adult could turn the card over, and it would walk that adult through what steps they could do to support that actual child. So Oakland Schools actually created these for us, and then disseminated them across the district at the secondary level, which is a great
that's
tool.
cool. Can I
to
see
use.
that?
Yeah, you sure can.
Do you have a follow-up?
Thank you. I do have one other question. The Navigate 360 that you mentioned, are those the records that are created there? Are those durable records? And the reason I ask that is if there's a child in elementary that's looked at, right? We create records on there. Do those records last through high school in the event that a child comes back into that program and we have to take a look and see what that history has been?
The intent would be that Navigate 360 would be a data warehouse, so it would store that information for us so that we would have that continuity. It wouldn't potentially be lost from one school to another, from one transition to another.
Okay.
But we are still working with them as to building that platform. What can we store on there? If we do a suicide assessment and we happen to use the Columbia, can the Columbia be included in that? The threat assessments, the suicide screeners, things of that nature. So we are building that platform, and they actually have a full spectrum of services as far as storing information.
Okay.
So we're still working on that.
Okay.
There's
Thank
one
you.
thing that I would stress, Chad, is the trainings and whatnot. Once we get all of our staff trained, I mean, obviously we're building capacity in our staff.
Right.
They're using those resources, but we aren't at a point to change policy at this point until people are fully trained and we're at that.
All right. Thank you.
Aaron?
Just a jump-off question to the Navigate 360. It won't be full access to all Oxford Community Schools staff, correct? It'll be only to, okay.
That was one of my questions. At what level does somebody have to be in order to access those records? I mean, I would imagine that it's going to be somebody that's on a threat assessment team, or maybe would a guidance counselor?
It would be, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Beal, but I believe it's administrative access, so it would be the administrative team that would
Okay.
have access to Navigate 360.
And just out of my curiosity, is this something that Oakland County is looking at, or everybody already has? Because it would seem to me that this would be beneficial for every district to put into place where, because families are transient, you may move from one community in Oakland County to another, or frankly, for anywhere in the state, if you move from one place to the next, this type of information should go along with that student.
So Dan, to answer your question, I would say many districts across the county and the state use Navigate 360
Okay.
in one capacity or another. So sometimes they store like their HR PDs that are required annually, your bloodborne pathogen PDs, things of that nature, and they access that, and then it stores that information from a human resource perspective. But I don't know that all districts, my previous district that I worked for did utilize Navigate 360 for suicidal and homicidal ideation and use their process for evaluating. So, but I can't speak for all districts. You know, it is a platform available to all districts. Yeah.
And I believe that's something that we may have to look into the legalities of providing that information for a student from one to another, because I know we can't not accept a student based on anything other than their academics. So that's something that we have to look into, the legalities. If they have a disciplinary issue, that's not a reason for not accepting somebody into your district. Because once you change that level of, oh, you got into 3 fights, well then you look into everybody that's been in 3 fights in your school district, and that's across the board. It's not just for that student coming in. So we have to make sure that the information that is being shared is,
This would only be for our district's information.
correct.
Yeah, it doesn't transfer to other districts at this point. But your question was, could.
But I guess my question would be, that's something that we're gonna have to do in the future if this is something we feel as though is important enough to legislatively have those conversations.
Be on the register.
Okay, any other questions?
Todd, I have a question about those cards.
Yes.
So the cards have they been given to all the students district-wide, or?
They've been distributed at the high school and the
Okay.
middle school.
Okay.
Where that would be
Good.
typically where you would really encounter the
Okay.
needs around those, at the secondary.
Okay, and do they possibly repeatedly give those out? I mean,
They were provided through Oakland Schools.
Okay.
And yeah, it is a tool.
Okay.
So our mentorship class at the high school provided them to our middle school students.
Great.
Which is really kind of a nice transition there from
Yeah.
peer to peer. And we are focused on building some of that peer-to-peer supports around suicide prevention specifically. So
That's
we're in
great.
the process of doing those types of things.
thanks.
Thank you.
I have one other question. What happens if an SRO is not available in the building where something comes up? Is this something that JV can handle?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we do have that coverage by having JV and the staff. He can go from building to building to building.
Yep, we could use Jim.
So I just want to make sure that, because I know we don't have a resource officer in every single building, but we have that coverage.
And even like was referenced, the threat assessment team can serve in a different building. If there's someone missing in a different building, we can take a whole team over, or individuals that
Okay.
aren't available. in
Okay.
one building.
Very good. And just to give just a rough idea, because I know there's been a lot of training going on in the recent months, roughly how many people would you say are trained?
In which,
In our-
in our basic BTAM
in our-
model,
Yes,
there are 62 staff members currently trained last count. It could fluctuate just a little, and I think we have 3 members of our threat assessment team. The 2 of them are signed up, and the third one, they might be signed up, I couldn't verify that.
and that covers just about across all buildings, not just 62 in one building, it's
No,
across.
That's across all buildings.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Including our early childhood stuff.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any other questions? No? Mary?
Thank you. Hi. I had a question about your statement about teams spending 2 to 3 hours. I had in my mind that it would be a lot more when you're talking about gathering all this information. I mean, this isn't something you can just do in half an hour, or just like grab a team together right this second, unless you've got these, like one of these imminent threats, right? It just seems like that's not enough time really to be able.
No, you have an entire team, and so it is pretty methodical how they work. And so you'll have your SRO going and doing one thing, and you'll have your principal doing another, your mental health professional, your psychologist who sits on that team working with that child. And they'll be sending out emails to instructional staff saying, do you have any pieces to a particular puzzle here to bring information together? So you have the entire team working on that. 2 to 3 hours, I was told, is the average, and it was roughly, how long does it take you to complete these on average? 2 to 3 hours. Some will take far longer. That's for the complete assessment.
So I have a kind of a follow-up. So it sounds like the value is in the process too. So you've got, everybody knows what they're supposed to do, and that's how it all works. It's the training and the practice.
That is really, it's a systems approach
Right.
to assessing the threat, definitely. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you.
If you follow the system,
Right.
you should be able to.
Right, and everybody does their piece, and that's why we can get this done quickly. Okay, thank you.
Okay. That'd be it? Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Busy night. Okay, unscheduled audience participation, item number 9. We're going to go ahead and grab the cards. Can we take a 3-minute break? We just have to set something up real quick, and then we'll take a quick break.
go to green,
Or-
and then, oops, sorry, we'll go to green and then red.
Okay, so then red when your time is up. When it hits red and your time is up, just try to wrap up. We'll give you a few seconds to wrap up your thought, but we'll keep it there. We'll try to keep it just to like 5 to 10 seconds after your thought. Okay, first person up, Jason McCarthy.
Good evening. If I'd known last meeting was more of a cheerleading tryout, then I probably would have stayed home. Now there's a complete difference from someone agreeing or supporting you than what I saw last week. When there are people leaving the room claiming teachers were paid or heavily talked into doing it, it doesn't seem like it's a good look on you guys. But more importantly, what about the students? What about the victims and their siblings who had to see that? What about the students who trusted those teachers? Last meeting, Mr. Bigelow spent a good portion of the time talking about students having someone to go to, a trusted adult. By deciding to try to save face, you also decided to put yourself above the student body more. While students lost a trusted adult, you got to be a hero and praised for how you're the hands that hold this community together. You got told that you support thousands of students and families, but I've not seen an ounce of support from you to the victims and their families. But I'm glad you got to enjoy a half hour of praise. In all reality, that didn't seem too authentic. If you wanted real praise, why don't you look in the mirror and take an ounce of responsibility for the mistakes you made along the way? We are not asking you to be perfect. We're asking you to be human. When you make a web of lies of opacity for almost a year, how are we as a community supposed to respect you and stand by you? I don't want to sit here and blame you for the cards that you've been dealt, but in all honesty, I think it's fair to blame you for how you've dealt with the cards. And something that should have been more important that night was a memorial, something that students and families alike have been fighting for. It's been a year and we got an official update. You toss blames to the members who are no longer sitting next to you in the community, saying, well, we didn't have a request of what the people wanted, when there's never room to speak to you. Anytime someone comes up here to talk, they talk to a wall. I doubt you reached out to the families either, the people who should have been your number one priority for how the memorial should be done. You never gave the opportunity to the community until supposedly now. To be transparent with you, I don't trust that. I feel like every week it switches between back and forth until people give up on fighting you. When people have been fighting for a memorial for almost a year, it seems a little incompetent that you open it to the community now. All we have as a memorial is where the students die. Is that where students are supposed to mourn? The people who lost your lives deserve more than that. They deserve to be more than where they took their last breaths. They deserve more than a bathroom, and they deserve more than just a hallway. They deserve more than anything you've ever given them, and it's not fair, and it will never be fair that you've given us nothing. Thank you.
George Stoffren. No.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. My name is George Stoffen. My daughter is in 12th grade and my son is in 10th grade. Before I speak to my reason for being here, I wanted to mention that my daughter Josie was a part of the Uvalde trip this past weekend. Thank you for supporting this trip as a board. I thank Mr. Weaver and the administration, and I thank Mrs. Barnett for her tireless work in helping these students for these past months, as well as the counselors and parents who helped them prepare and who accompanied them. I have teared up every time I read about this in news stories and in social media. I'm almost ready to tear up right now. Josie came home the other day and told me this was life-changing. I love all these kids. What an amazing group of young people. They're going to change the world, and I'm so proud. I'm here to express my hope that the district might consider the hiring of a DEI coordinator, or at least integrate these responsibilities and this role into the duties and work of a current member of the administration. I think this is a missing element in this district. I believe that the addition of a DEI coordinator can play an important role in our students having a fulsome and well-rounded educational experience, while ensuring that they are prepared for the diverse, multicultural world they will enter upon graduation. It is also important for students, faculty, and staff of the LGBTQ+ and minority communities, for those with disabilities, and generally the underserved, as well as many others, to feel welcome, that this is a safe place, that they are celebrated for who they are, and that they are able to express themselves fully. A DEI coordinator can assist in the recruitment and retention of staff and faculty, and I believe we should aspire to achieve a more diverse faculty, staff, and student body. It would be healthy. A DEI coordinator would also develop policies that support equity and inclusion in the work of the district and in the classroom, to include training that addresses best and most updated practices, engage in curricular development that supports these goals, and consolidates the work of the district and the district's communications in this area. This person would bring expertise in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and serve as a point person for the district. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is obviously a broad subject and can be applied in this position in any number of ways, large and small. My hope is that a gay teacher can speak comfortably about a spouse, that transgender kids' pronouns are always respected, that people of color always feel included, and that those with disabilities are never, ever marginalized. I hope that as a district we can do more with regard to Black History Month, Indigenous Peoples Day, Gay Pride Month, as well as learning more about less traditional holidays. As a musician, I hope we can celebrate the work and accomplishments of women musical composers who worked in a field traditionally dominated by white men. These include Hildegard von Bingen, the most famous 12th century composer, as well as Florence Price, the early 20th century Black woman composer who remained obscure until recent discoveries in her music.
3 minutes, George.
Okay. The point is that we can and should do even more. Our students will enter college with colleagues from around the country and from around the world. They'll enter a military with people from many different backgrounds. They'll enter a workforce if they work in the Detroit region that is multicultural and diverse. It is incumbent upon all of us as parents, but also as a district, that we ensure that our kids have the cultural competency and literacy so they are best prepared for this challenging world. Thank you.
Mark Gillum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make sure, is Mr. Weaver okay? This is the second meeting he's missed, and after the last meeting, you told me you didn't have authority to make any decisions regarding staffing and such, because that was his role. So how are we as a community supposed to address that if he's not at the meeting? And I do think you have more influence with the administration than you sit up here and you look at us like you have no authority or you can't respond, but we know you have the authority. And I guess my point is, if you're not going to use it, why don't you just resign? Because what you're doing isn't helping. We're almost 12 months into this.
Okay.
Can I speak? Or
Go ahead.
You don't have to like what I say, Heather, and you should resign too. It's about time. You mentioned the memorial work. I would be happy to volunteer for the memorial work. Anything the school needs, I would be happy to rally for that cause, to keep the memory of all 4 students alive, so that we always remember this. On November 30th, our first Remembrance Day, luminaries are available at the Resiliency Center, and Remembrance Day clothing is available on the OxfordWildcatBoosters.com. You can get those. Just a real couple things. Single-use bathrooms. Any money is going to be spent on the development of the facilities. Let's switch to single-use bathrooms and eliminate the security problems associated with the bathrooms. Thank you for having guideposts come and update us. I think that should happen at every meeting. And I would like to know, how much are we paying them for their services?
That number was posted. It's accrued over time.
Okay, all right. So it really doesn't matter. They're not law enforcement. So they may have some opinions, but the truth is, we know staff was counseled not to cooperate with this. So maybe there's some good information that'll come from that. Maybe not. but the sheriff's report is going to be released, and the depositions of the people who were involved is being released. So we know the truth, generally, if you read the lawsuits, and specifically the information relating to the 4 defendants that keep getting mentioned over and over. We'd like to hear at every meeting the attorneys that we're paying to represent this district. Maybe since you don't want to talk to the community, maybe you could have your attorneys come to the meeting, every meeting, and talk to us, because it's been a year and you don't give us any information. In fact, it was just a few meetings ago where you actually were crying and told the whole community you were sorry for keeping us in the dark and lying to us. So I looked on the website. Your value of trust is still number 1. If you want to help us with trust, I would immediately recommend terminating the contracts of Mr. Throne and Mr. Wolf, who told this entire community to shut up leading up to November 30th, and that our concerns were invalid and to stop. And then after November 30th, they continued that pattern of trying to silence this community. So we have no trust for them. And then we have EJAC and Hopkins, who failed to report to CPS mandatory reporting, or involve the law enforcement in the school that was here on November 30th. They didn't do that. They just put the kid back in the room, and you said that's my opinion. It's not my opinion. It was information from their deposition and their statement, Mr. Ejiak and Mr. Hopkins. So I don't know how you expect us to trust you when you keep employing the people who were responsible on the day of the attack.
Barbie Johnson.
Good evening. You'll have to excuse my attire. I'm an elementary teacher in the district. Yeah, it was PJ Day, so I apologize. I'm not more formally attired to address the board. But being that Thanksgiving is coming up, I just wanted to say thank you for making a choice to do your job of being a public servant in a time where it can be really difficult. If Mr. Weaver were here, I would also be saying thank you to him. I've taught here since 2001, and he would be my 4th superintendent. And I'd have to say that as a human being, a father in our district who has children that go here, a fellow teacher, a leader, an administrator, I support him. And I want to wish you all happy Thanksgiving.
Melissa Williams.
Hi. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous. I didn't plan on talking tonight, and it's been a year, and I decided that I wanted to say something tonight. My name is Melissa Williams. I am a parent here in the district. I'm a parent of a junior who was there that day. He was in the hallway in one of the 200 rooms. I'm also the administrative assistant to the principal, and I was there that day. And I just want to say thank you to a few people. I wanted to say thank you to Steve Wolf, who locked me in my office and said, do not come back out. I want to thank you for that. While I was on the phone with 911, I want to say thank you to Mark Suckley, who locked all the exterior doors so that I was safe. I want to say thank you to Pam Fine, who ran in and out of the building screaming for help and Mr. Weaver, who did the same thing. In and out, without Kevlar vests. In and out. I want to say thank you to Christy Gibson Marshall and Kurt Noose. You have been broken, we've all been broken, but I want everyone to know that what breaks us also is the meetings that we hear. And I know, first and foremost, I love every family. I was on those cameras. I've seen things I don't want anyone else ever to have to see. I love every single one of you. I could not imagine. My son is alive today, and I know I'm blessed for that. And you're in my heart every day. Your children's faces, and they're on my walls. Every day I pray for all of us. But I just want to say thank you. It's Thanksgiving. And I wanted to say thank you to those people who helped me that day. And there's truth to come out, but it's not my place. But I hope that there's more truth than what we're hearing at this podium every week. Thank you.
Okay, we have some scheduled activities. Thanksgiving break is the 23rd through the 25th. There's no school on November 30th. It's Wildcat Remembrance Day. We have some additional,
Dan, can you just a reminder that the Resiliency Center drop off the luminaire bags?
okay, yeah,
Did you guys hear Angela?
yeah.
There's
ahead.
luminary bags over at the entrance of the media center over there, maybe by the water. Ron, are they by there, hon? Okay. By Ron Roop over there, by where the water is. There's also Remembrance Week scheduled activities. So please grab that, put it on your fridge. You never know what your kid might or might not want to go to, or what you might need to go to.
Yeah, and there are quite a number of local businesses that are offering students, family members to come in on the 30th just to be with other students. It's important. It's important to remember the day, that best fits their heart. So we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity. So that's what other scheduled, or the other events that are happening. There's a couple other ones, but they're board meetings on January 11th and January 24th. January 11th meeting is at Lakeville Elementary, and the 24th is here at the high school. Both of them are at 6:30. Some clarification things that we want to bring up. Mary, you want to address the National School Board Administration Advocacy Institute?
Sure, do you want?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Just a quick brief.
Sure. So I have been participating in a number of advocacy events, professional development events, school board related events with the Michigan Association of School Boards. The National School Board Association in January will again be hosting its Advocacy Institute, where school board members have an opportunity to learn about lobbying, our Congress folks, discuss the legal and legislative issues that are happening in Washington, and what's coming up in Washington. There's going to be a lot of changes in the state, for sure. I can talk about that next time. We also have MASB, who arranges for us to meet with our own local legislators. We have breakfast with Senator Peters and Debbie Stabenow, Senator Stabenow, who are big supporters of education. Our new US Rep Lisa McLean, she's not new to Washington, but she is new to Oxford. So we'll have, it looks like we'll have an opportunity to meet with her also. So we have a chance to sit face to face with legislators and tell them what's happening in our district and what it is that we need here. The question is, what does that do for us? What does go to Washington do for Oxford, for our students? Well, I can tell you one of the ways that they were a piece of getting help from Washington is the IDEA funding. So I just want to bring up that it's been almost 50 years since the federal government authorized federal funding for up to 40% of per pupil spending for our special needs populations. That has never been fully funded. It has been sitting at 11% in about 2000. That's out of 40 that they said that they would cover by asking us to do these things. But because of a lot of the advocacy work that school boards and administrators have done, we're getting that funding moving forward. So this is a way that this kind of work really makes a difference in our community here. We really do bring that back to our students and building the relationships with our legislators, so when we do need support, when there is funding available, that they know what we need and are willing to have conversations to do that. So I just wanted to bring that up. Aaron and I were looking at going to this conference in Washington, D.C. I know that some of the people that we work with on the Oakland Schools Board said if there was any conference for school board members to go to, that this one was it. We get the biggest return on investment in building these relationships. So I just wanted to bring this to the attention of the rest of the board members and see if anybody had any questions. There's also the Equity Symposium on Saturday where they talk about, we learn about advocating for equitable practices in our schools.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. And we can use training dollars in order to do that. I checked and verified that we could do so. Correct.
It is professional
All right.
development.
Very good.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mary. So one of the other things that we will be doing this evening is I want to read this. So bear with me, please. Dear school board members, it is with a heavy heart that I write to inform you that I have been placed on a medical leave by my doctor from November 23rd, 2022 until February 20th, 2023. After much thought and reflection, I have decided to resign my position as superintendent of Oxford Community Schools with the effective date of February 21st, 2023. Over the last couple of months, my health, wellness, and my own recovery from the events of November 30th has been greatly impacted by the stress and responsibility of my position. With the deterioration of my health, I have come to understand that my own recovery path must now lead me away from Oxford Community Schools. Over my 19 plus years with Oxford Community Schools, I believe that I made every effort to help educate and improve the lives of our students. In March of this year, I was honored to be given the opportunity to lead this school district. I knew it was going to be an almost impossible task and many difficult situations. Even then, I underestimated the toll that this position would take on me. There has been a never-ending succession of extremely emotional and difficult decisions. It saddens me to think that my long tenure with Oxford Schools will end, but I also realize it is best for both the school district, myself, and my family. My decision will allow the new school board to select a new superintendent to lead Oxford Community Schools through the second year of its recovery, and it will allow me the opportunity to heal and recover from my own experiences. I will participate in the district's independent review before officially leaving the school district, and I will continue to uphold my responsibilities in legal proceedings. I'm extremely proud of our staff and how they have responded to November 30th tragedy by putting in place a comprehensive plan to address the many supports needed to help students and staff through this difficult period. By their actions, I know our staff truly loves and cares for our students. I wish to express my love and care for students, families, and staff of Oxford as well. For this reason, I have struggled with this decision. While I know the timing of this decision is at a crucial time in Oxford's recovery, I could not have foreseen the impact the last couple of months would have on my health. I wish to thank the current board for its support through these last couple months. I understand that my decision is irrevocable so that Oxford Community Schools can move forward with its recovery path. I leave Oxford Community my love and will always cherish my friendships and interactions with students, staff, and community during my time in the school district. I have been honored to work with you for the greater good of Oxford students. Sincerely, Kenneth B. Weaver. Okay. So given that, I've jotted down a few motions that we need to make this official and we can move forward as a district. So, Heather, would you mind reading the first one, please? Will you read the third one, please? Whenever you're ready.
Move to accept the resignation of Superintendent Ken Weaver. As submitted.
Is there support? Support, Mr. Griffith. Any discussion?
I just want to say, it's not a formal discussion, but there's something called a servant leader. And what a servant leader is somebody who does not lead by authority, but leads to serve other people and leads to serve the people he works for, the people he governs over, meaning student body, and his community. And that is exactly what Ken Weaver is. And that's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
That's it.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Aaron, would you like to read the next one, please? Chad's got three.
I move to appoint Anita Conja Collins as the acting superintendent of Oxford Community Schools until an interim superintendent is identified.
Is there support? Support, Mr. Foster. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Chad, would you like to read the final one, please?
Move to authorize a board member appointed by board president to consult with Michigan Leadership Institute, MLI, to confirm the terms for a contract to conduct a search process for an interim superintendent and successor for superintendent of Oxford Community Schools.
Support? Support, Aaron. Any discussion? With, if it's okay with the board, I would prefer to have Heather be that appointed person. She was somebody that dealt with MLI in our first go-round when we were looking for Ken, and she has the familiarity with John Silveri. I would hope that she can do that first thing tomorrow. Okay. Any other further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Final board comments. Anybody? Colleen?
Yeah, I don't really know what to say, except that, like all of you and many of you, my heart is broken. And I'm so proud of Ken that he is putting his health first. As I've told him many times, he's a father of 4 children and a husband, and that needs to be his first priority. And Anita, thank you for stepping up for us and taking this responsibility on. I appreciate that.
Anybody else? Okay. I want to just briefly let everybody know that Ken Weaver knew the position that he was taking on when he was named superintendent. But one of the things that he didn't realize was just the way that the world seems to work these days. The world doesn't have to have somebody to blame. If they don't know what it is, they just blame somebody that they just feel as though, well, that's the person. I'm grateful for my time spent with Ken, especially these last couple days, these last couple weeks. We've had some pretty good talks, and he's just a super, super person. And this district will miss him sorely. But as I told Ken, and I will tell everybody, that this district is bigger than me. It's bigger than Ken Weaver. It's bigger than any of us sitting here. This district will go on. This district will see better days because of the staff and the students that fill these walls. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we've already jumped right to the other portion. So with that, our meeting is adjourned.